Good morning and welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. We are broadcasting live this morning from Cape May County via the Exceptional Conservative Network and SHR Media. I am your host and business diva, Melanie Collette. Joining us this morning, we have professional governmental relations expert and author of the book Laws and Sausage. You never want to see either one made, Mr. Brian Trascher, to discuss healthcare and tax reform bills, which is on many of our minds this morning. Those bills are both being reformed, or I should say, those issues are both being reformed. Those laws are both being reformed. And he wrote a book about how those take place. He's also a former lobbyist, and that's what the book is mainly about what lobbyists do and how you can kind of act as your own lobbyist. But if you've ever seen Sausage Made, maybe YouTube that, and you will see why the book is titled as such. Laws getting made are just as ugly, quite frankly. So so that's what we're going to speak to him about. But before we do that, a bit of housekeeping. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, you may do so at MoneyTalkMel, and like me on Facebook. My handle is at MoneyTalkWithMelanie, or you may email me at MoneyTalkWithMelanie@gmail.com. Like to send me some show ideas, like a guest that you would like to see, or tell me that you don't like the color of my sweater, whatever. Because if you are on Spreaker right now, just listening on Spreaker, and you'd like to watch me streaming live on Ustream TV, you may do so by going to the exceptionalconservativeshow.com and clicking on the tecn.biz tab, and I'm streaming live on Ustream TV. Now, that being said, if you would like to be one of the guests on Money Talk with Melanie, you're an expert in the financial field or in public policy that has anything to do with money, and quite frankly, what doesn't, and you would like to join one of our esteemed list of guests, such as former Senator of Colorado, Ted Harvey. We had Albert Guillory on. We've had Colonel Rob Maness. We had Ebony Williams on Monday. And of course, we have Mr. Brian Trascher on today. If you would like to join that esteemed list of guests, please send us your information by going to the exceptionalconservativeshow.com, clicking on Contact Us, or you can give me a call at 202-660-1329. My extension is 2. Now, that being said, what is going on in the news? Lots and lots of stuff going on in the news. I wish I didn't care so much sometimes, because sometimes I sit and watch the news and just literally get angry, and I feel like I'm just this little like height challenge person that jumps up and down like Yosemite Sam and just just gets angry. And anyone who's ever met me and knows how height challenged I am is probably like really laughing their face off right now, envisioning me just jumping up and down with my little fists, getting angry watching the news, because yesterday we're talking about Syria, very serious topics going on in the news. More than 80 people were killed with the chemical weapons that were used in Syria last week. So, of course, President Trump, being who he is and the type of leader that he is, decided that his response would be to swiftly attack with an airstrike the air base that the chemical weapons were sent from. Fantastic. I mean, of course, everyone doesn't agree with that decision, and 100% of people are not going to agree with that decision. But he was making a point. He was making a point by doing that. Now U.S. officials are saying that Russia may have known about the attack ahead of time, that they may have known in advance. Russia is, of course, saying Syria didn't do it, they were framed, blah, blah, blah. Sure, because we can really trust Russia. So, and by the way, so much for the accusation that Trump was, so pro-Russia during the election cycle. I swear, can you believe anything that's said during the election cycle when someone's in the lead? I'm just not sure. But yeah, now they're saying Russia may have known about the attack ahead of time. I wouldn't be surprised. But Russia's saying that Syria was framed. They according to their intelligence, Syria was framed. Okay. So that being said, things are going to be a little bit awkward today because our Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is going to be in Moscow today on his first official visit. So I'm going to guess now he's supposed to be meeting with his counterpart today. So far, at least as far as I know, he's not supposed to be meeting with Putin. But my guess is things are probably going to be a little frosty at that meeting today. But, they have some very serious business that they need to talk about. What else? What else is going on now? Listen, full disclosure, now we're going to talk about Sean Spicer. And full disclosure, he's my nerd crush. So I just, I may not be as hard on him as I need to be about this. And I'm just, I just need to put that out there because I try to keep it authentic and 100% honest at all times. He's my nerd crush. It is what it is. I love some Sean Spicer. Okay. So now I have to deliver this bad news about Sean Spicer, major gaffe yesterday. This is how much I love Sean Spicer. Okay. So this was his gaffe yesterday. He said that even Hitler didn't use chemical weapons yesterday. So I'm watching him say this. Now, of course, I know that Hitler did use chemical weapons, but when Sean Spicer says this yesterday, at first, for a split second, I'm going, oh my God, he didn't? No, well, of course I know he did. No, Sean. Yeah, it's a major problem. So, but here's the thing about Sean Spicer. Very quickly apologize, own up to it. That's what a man does. That's all I'm saying. So, owned up to it, said, it was a major mistake, which it was. And, he said this shouldn't distract from, President Trump's efforts to, get things on track where they should be in the Mideast, to try to do what he can to destabilize the Mideast. So, and that's important. Don't let his verbal mistake distract from what's important, I think was the bottom line there. So, my nerd crush can make mistakes as long as he apologizes. It's the bottom line. Poor Sean. Anyway, I'm sure he'll make up for it. And I'm sure the press is going to try to beat him up today. So the presser today should be really interesting. I hope I'm not on the road when it's on today. I'm a huge fan. But anyway, I'm like a Sean Spicer groupie. It's bad. Anyhow. So lastly, but this is the other thing that made me mad. Again, just super angry. Apparently, the FBI got permission to spy on Carter Page, who is one of President Trump's campaign advisors ahead of last year's election. So, here's the thing, ladies and gents. If you're spying on members of President Trump's campaign, then you're essentially spying on Donald Trump. I'm just saying. You are. They got a FISA warrant, which gives the government permission to spy on you. It's a secret court. A judge has to sign on it if they find probable cause. Right? So far, none of these people that they have found part of the Trump campaign, they found no evidence of collusion with Russia from no one. So, and remember, this is under the Obama administration, while Obama is endorsing Donald Trump's opponent. It's just wrong. I'm sorry. It's just wrong, and I'm fighting mad. It just makes me angry. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, you should be mad too, because it's complete abuse of power. I'm going to calm down. I'm going to say some woosahs, because we're going to talk to Brian Trascher about how laws are passed. We're going to talk about tax reform. We're going to talk about what went wrong with the healthcare bill, how we can get it back on track, what lobbyists do, because, lobbyists have a lot to do with, they're kind of behind the scenes, and a lot of people don't know what they do, but they have a lot to do with what holds up getting a lot of these reforms passed. So we're going to talk to him about that on the other side of the break. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We will be right back in a few moments.
Hello, this is Leslie Ann Stoffel with The Real Clear Israel. Join me every Sunday morning at 10:05 Eastern Time on the Exceptional Conservative Network, where we'll be discussing Israel with guests from Israel and around the world.
That's The Real Clear Israel, 10:05 Sunday on the Exceptional Conservative Network.
Good morning.
I'm Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Okay, folks, that's not how it goes. I think I'm Shannon, and you're so, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. We are The Right Way with Shannon and Mike.
Join us from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time.
Hi there, we're on
live on SHR Media.
And on TECN.
Where we'll be talking about all kinds of things.
From sports and politics.
To food and entertainment.
Okay, great.
To money.
Family.
And anything else in between.
Community. Holidays.
Yep, I can hear you.
It'll be great. Join us from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time.
Okay. Human by
Don't
race.
hear you so well, but if you can hear me, then I'll do my best to try to.
Yep.
American by nationality.
Well, part of it is because I'm playing a commercial. That's probably why.
It's Reverend Ralph Kittums.
Yeah, but I can hear you great.
On the Exceptional Conservative Network.
Yeah, you very there's like a muffle and an echo on your end.
Monday through Friday.
Okay.
The Right Guy on TECN.
From the war front to the streets of our nation's capital, men of faith, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, and Kenneth McClinton, the exceptional conservative, bring both constitutional gravitas and spiritual perspective on today's issues to the most influential Christian urban talk show, 9:05 p.m. Eastern, Thursdays. It's a new day on a new day, black and red.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservative.com.
Okay, we are back. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and we have with us this morning one Mr. Brian Trascher. How are you this morning, Mr. Trascher?
Hey, good morning. How's things in New Jersey?
Things are fantastic here in New Jersey. The weather is beautiful, and I have the privilege of living down here near the shore. So it's like the best time to live here in the spring. So it's fantastic. But you're in New Orleans, which is also a fantastic place to live.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't gym can laundry. We just gym and laundry, but it's like 80 degrees and nice spring weather here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I would trade places with you any day. New Orleans is fantastic.
That's right. It's not a city you live in. It's a city that lives in you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have friends that live in New Orleans. I got to get down there for sure. Well, before.
I'm sorry, I missed that last comment, man.
I said I have friends in New Orleans. I have to get down there. I have to get back there, actually.
Hello?
Hello? I said I have to get back there. I love it there. It is fantastic.
Yeah.
Before we get into the meat of policy and all that good stuff, can you tell our audience a little bit?
I tell you what, Melanie, I don't know if you can hear me, but I am not hearing anything. I'm just hearing very faint noises in and out.
Oh, really? Are you outside by any chance? It sounds like you're outside.
Yeah, I'm outside right now, trying to walk back to my office, but
okay.
But now I can kind of hear you.
Okay, great. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of lawmaking and lobbying and all that fun stuff, can you tell the audience a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so when I was 10 years old, my mom took me to the movies, and I saw the movie Goonies, and ever since then I wanted to be a pirate. And when I got to college, I was disappointed to find out that piracy had been outlawed in 1786 in the United States. So I started trying to figure out what else I could do for a living that was close to it, and lobbying was the perfect fit.
That's great. So you decided to become a lobbyist. Now, how is being a lobbyist like piracy?
Basically, because we rob the bad guys to try to help the good guys.
I like it. That's very good. So I want my audience to know that in addition to being, are you a former lobbyist, or is that still what you do?
No, yeah, I'm still a partner in Gulf South Strategies, which is a lobbying firm based in New Orleans. We primarily, our clients are in the Gulf South region, but we also have national clients in D.C. So, we have offices in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Washington, D.C.
Okay, excellent. So I want my audience to also know that in addition to his lobbying, Mr. Trascher is also an author, as I mentioned in the opening this morning. He also does public speaking. He's an entrepreneur. He's a governmental regulations professional. And he's been in the business for over 20 years. So he knows what he's talking about. And the book that he has out called Laws and Sausage, you don't want to see how either one of them is made. It is just so very true. And I wanted to speak to him this morning about two of the major reforms that are in the news today and that are very important to all of us, which are, of course, the healthcare bills and healthcare reform and tax reform. Most recently, we had a tax reform bill that went up, the American Care Act, and of course it failed. And I think, one of the things about lobbyists is that they tend to be behind the scenes. You don't hear a lot about the lobbyists and how lobbyists affect the healthcare bill, about how lobbyists affect bills in general. You don't hear a lot about that. I think many of us ask questions. Well, why did that congressman, propose this particular thing in this bill? How come that congressman didn't keep that promise? When he said he was going to do X, Y, Z. And I think a lot of times it has to do with a lobbyist. Would you agree with that? And if so, how so?
Well, yeah, first of all, the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, was written almost entirely by lobbyists. I mean, it was a combination of insurance company lobbyists, people who are, kind of advocates for single payer, socialized medicine. There was a lot of money getting dumped in from, big money socialists like George Soros to try to put this together. And basically the way it was designed, you see now it's coming apart at the seams, and it's because it was designed to. I mean, that's what a lot of people don't even realize. It was designed to go bankrupt within a few years, because if you remember back in 2008 when subprime mortgage, hit the fan, would any other time in history would the American people have stood by and watched Congress bail out Wall Street? I mean, they would not have had, but it was a crisis, right? So they came to the American people and said, look, this is a crisis. ATM machines are going to stop spitting out money. People are going to come take away your house and your car. You're going to lose your job. If we don't bail out these banks, it's just going to be a calamity. And so American people said, all right, this is BS, but I guess we got to do it. It's a crisis. Well, that's what they basically modeled the ACA after, saying, hey, we're going to make it to where it becomes a financial crisis, to where we can then force the American people with no other choice but to usher in single-payer / socialized medicine. Well, what they didn't count on was President Trump winning the election. They thought that they were going to be passing the baton on to Hillary Clinton, who has always been a proponent of single-payer, and that was going to be their foray into socialized medicine. As you know, Karl Marx said you control their income and their health care, and you control the people, and that's the that is the cornerstone of socialism. So, might have been a longer answer than you wanted, but that's basically what happened.
No, absolutely it. And the listeners need to understand that. And so when you say that the Affordable Care Act was basically written completely by lobbyists, first of all, explain to the audience, for those who may not be aware, what a lobbyist is, and give us an example of one type of lobbyist that may have been included or may have influenced the Affordable Care Act or any health care bill for that matter.
Yeah. So let me preface it by saying I was not one of the lobbyists that helped write the Affordable Care Act. I was on the other side trying to kill it. But yeah, so basically lobbyists are people who try to influence an elected official or appointed official or any kind of policymaker in exchange for compensation. So a client comes to me and says, hey, I want to get this bill passed, or I want to get this bill killed, and they pay my fees and I go and get it done for them. And lobbyists, will, after being in the business for a while, or usually they get into the business because they have some strong relationships with policymakers, and over the years you develop and maintain strong relationships with those policymakers so that you're able to influence that way. They know, for instance, when I go to a congressman or a state legislator that have known me for a long time, when I introduce a client that they may not know, it automatically gives them some credibility and some familiarity because they know me, and they know I wouldn't bring somebody to them, that was some kind of Yahoo. So with regards to the Affordable Care Act, it's not that the insurance companies really wanted that type of a law, but if they were going to have it, they wanted to make sure they wrote it and that they were going to be financially taken care of. And they made money off of it for the first few years. And when it got to the point where they weren't going to make money anymore, they just started parachuting out of it, and that's why it's coming apart. And big insurance companies are pulling out of it. State exchanges are failing. People are getting premiums increase anywhere from 50 to 300%. And if Congress doesn't do something about it, it's going to be it will be a disaster. Let me tell you what. I hate to compliment my friends on the Democrat side, but the bill was really crafted in a very genius way. Number one, it infiltrates so many areas of government departments, and the national budget that's why it's so hard to undo. People think, well, you just sign a piece of paper and it's repealed. You can't do that because it's changed the way so many different departments operate and how their budgets operate. That was one really smart thing. The other really smart thing is that they knew that in the event that the Republicans were ever back in control of the government, that they knew it would be this hard to change it or to do anything to it or improve it, and that they knew it would collapse, and then it would probably happen under Republican rules. So the Republicans would not only be blamed for not being able to prevent this law from becoming law, but they'd also be blamed for it when it crashed. You see what I'm saying? So the Democrats are very good at being sneaky like that. So what the Republicans need to do is quit, screwing around and trying to come up with something that's, warm and fuzzy, feel good for everybody, and just get to work on dismantling it from the ground up. And even if it takes a year, 2 years, whatever, do it right and replace it with something that makes sense.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. And I have been kind of fighting is not the right word, but debating with my conservative friends. And listen, I'm a conservative, but I've been challenged on that because I've been saying I have some friends who are kind of like on the Rand Paul Freedom Caucus side. They're like, oh, just do a complete repeal and let the chips fall where they may. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. The ACA has been in place for 7 years. I don't know that you can just do that.
Yeah, I mean that would be like saying, hey, Medicare's going broke, so why don't we just kill the program and we'll figure out something else to do in the meantime. People over the age of 65 just want to have health care. You know what I mean? Like you can't do that.
Right, exactly. And from
so
a PR perspective,
20 million people. Now they say 20 million people now have insurance that didn't have it before. That's not really true. What you had was people who were on private plans. A lot. I mean, you have a several million people who legitimately have insurance that didn't have it before. Okay, then you have probably about half of that number who were on private health insurance plans. They might not have been the best plans, but it was private health insurance, and their employers just said, hey, it's cheaper for us just to let you go on Obamacare. So they moved them over to Obamacare, and so they were forced onto it. So it's not like they didn't have health insurance before. What the government called them was underinsured.
Right.
And now they consider them insured, and they're adding it to that 20 million number. The other thing is that the Medicaid expansion basically is the states that accepted it. It's good for now because you get more people insured and the federal government's paying for it. But in a few years, it kicks back to the states where they're going to get a bill from the government for about, anywhere from 1 to 10% as time goes on to pay back the federal government for these subsidies. And I mean, in some states like Louisiana right now is like in a $200-300 million budget deficit. We're going to get a bill from the federal government for $100 million. We're not going to be able to pay.
Right.
So that's another thing. It's kind of like you get a new credit card and you run it up, max it out, thinking, hey, life's great right now because I can go buy all these things. But eventually that bill is going to come due, and if you don't pay it, you're gonna get sued.
Right.
So I mean, it's very short-sighted.
And here's the other big thing with what you just mentioned that people don't realize, and this really kills me just about how the government works in general. Governors have to balance their budget. The feds do not. So that's a big deal. You know what I mean? That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, Louisiana, we can't print our own money. I mean, if we could turn oysters into currency, we'd be very rich. But unfortunately, it's not the way it works.
Exactly. So when you're talking about just, we're just going to go ahead and just do a straight repeal. Well, you don't know how that's going to affect each and every state. As far as like what you just mentioned, the Medicaid, which states took the Medicaid expansion and all of that stuff. And again, governors have to balance their budget. Where is that money going to come from if you do a straight repeal? And as I've said to my Freedom Caucus loving friends, guys, you can't just do that without considering the effects. It's been, like I said to them, I like to live in a place called reality. And the reality is the bill's been around for 7 years. We've been living with this bill for 7 years. And as you said, in the Democrats and their brilliance, they made sure that it attached itself to so many different things that it was going to be hard to dig it out without some serious consequences.
Yeah, they rolled it out as stage 5 cancer. Like they didn't want it to be stage 1 where it was treatable, right? They wanted it to be like just fatal. And that's the way they built it into the system. Now, with regards to what you're talking about, straight repeal and governors having to balance their budgets, one thing I've learned in 20 years of being a professional lobbyist is that, with Democrats, you tug at heartstrings, Republicans tug at purse strings. Yes. Democrats will say, you'll have all these poor, vulnerable population, children and elderly and poor people that all of a sudden won't have insurance anymore and they're just going to die. Well, that it's not quite that drastic, but it's not completely untrue. But the way I explain it to Republicans is look, if these people lose their coverage under the Affordable Care Act, when they get sick, they're going to start going to emergency rooms again, which is astronomically more expensive than going to the doctor or a clinic with the Obamacare policy. And then the budget's going to be blown even, exponentially more than what it would have under Obamacare. So now the other thing that people have to realize is that right now we're going through a serious. People hear about the opioid crisis, but I don't think most Americans understand how bad it is and how much it's affecting inner cities all across the country. I mean, your Governor Christie, just took over the president's task force on battling the opioid crisis, and he's got a tough job ahead of him. But with regards to Medicaid expansion, a lot of people who are addicted to drugs, all of a sudden got more access to more treatment services than they had before. And if this is going back to heartstrings versus purse strings, if they lose that coverage and they can't stay in these facilities to get treatment, they either go back onto the street, commit crimes, and or die, or they go into the criminal justice system where, again, it costs a lot more to incarcerate someone than it does to treat them for addiction. So that's something that's real. That's an effect we would feel right away if there was just a straight repeal. And believe me, I love my libertarian friends, and there's a lot of things I agree with them with, but I find that libertarianism tends to be short-sighted. It tends to be, let's do what feels good and seems like it makes sense right now and not worry about the future. And when you're governing, that's just not reality. You have to plan for the future because, there is a cliff, and if you don't prepare for it, you will fall off of it.
Exactly. And the thing is, you also have to, in my opinion, I don't know if you agree with this from a lobbyist perspective, you have to consider the PR perspective. And I just don't think, I feel like one of the things I find most frustrating about being a Republican is that I don't feel like we consider the PR as much, because we already know what Democrats are going to do. You just said it. They're going to tug at the heartstrings. And Republicans are all like, oh, but the Constitution. I'm like, yo, people don't care about the Constitution. I do. We do.
No.
This is why we're Republicans. We want to know how much their health care is going to be. Right.
Republicans are horrendous at public relations. Horrendous. Exactly. Republicans have worse public relations than United freaking Airlines, okay? It's one thing that they've never, ever, ever been able to learn. And I don't understand, because we got some really smart people in our party, but my God, I mean, it's just awful the way we can't anticipate and spin news. Now, granted, the Democrats have always had the mass media on their side, and that does give them a leg up. But let me tell you what, there are some ways to go out there and spin the narrative on a lot of these issues, and they just don't. I mean, look at how bad, our congressional leadership got their butts whipped. They not only lost the PR battle to the Democrats, they lost it to the Republicans too with this new health care bill. Right. The AHCA and the ACA, I was going around saying the only difference was the H.
Right.
They need to get better at, they're good at policy, they got to get better at selling it.
Exactly. Did you see the Freedom Caucus? I've never been so angry in my life. I'm like, number one, we're arguing in front of company. Bad look. Why are we arguing in front of the entire country? And two, why are we shoving the Constitution in everybody's faces and not showing any concern whatsoever for the people who are going to be affected by that? I'm like, this is why people hate Republicans. I'm like, this is that stuff right there.
We criticize the media for sacrificing getting a story right in lieu of getting a story first. And that's exactly what the Republicans did, was they were so worried about getting a repeal and replace fast, because it was one of the top, campaign promises that the president made, instead of getting it right. And truthfully, I think that the president looked at this and said, I don't know if this is going to be any better or what, but I think that, Paul Ryan said, look, this is what I can get done, and we can't get anything else done. We can try to, nip and tuck it later. And the president said, all right, well, take the ball and run with it there, Skippy, and he fumbled the ball. And so I think that the president looks at it now and say, hey, look, I gave you your chance with your bill. Now we're going to come back, we're going to regroup, we're going to come back with my bill, and we're going to shove it down everybody's throat. And that's just the way President Trump has always operated in business and now in politics, is that he just beats his opponents into submission. So if people think that the Democrats, when they think that they had some kind of victory by beating back this bill, that's a lot like the Lusitania making fun of the Titanic for hitting an iceberg. Okay,
exactly.
I mean, it's coming for them. They just don't know it yet.
Exactly. I said that on social media to my Democrat friends. I said I'd put the cork back in that champagne if I were you. I'd chill on the celebration if I were you. That's not. You don't know what you're in for. I said I would relax. I would just sit back and I'd put the champagne back in the fridge. If I were you.
Right.
We're up against the.
So now we're going to get now we'll get tax reform and a border wall and some other low hanging fruit. And once the administration gets a little bit more of a tailwind, they'll come back with a repeal and replace, and nobody will be able to stop it.
Absolutely. We're up against the commercial break, but on the other side of the break, I want to ask you about how the tax reform bill is going to go and who the lobbyist players are in that. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette. We are speaking with Brian Trascher. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Hey, it's Jersey Joe from the Reaver, Common Sense. You can catch me every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on shrmedia.com. That's every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, shrmedia.com.
Hi, my name is Willie Lawson of The Willie Lawson Show here on the Exceptional Conservative Network, Monday through Fridays, 9 a.m. They told me that I needed to be humble, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. So I decided to be awesome instead. That's The Willie Lawson Show, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. here on the Exceptional Conservative Network.
I'm Ken McClinton, chairman of the Exceptional Conservative Network. Never has the cry for economic liberty been more resounding in urban America than on Election Day 2016. It's the economy! All real change begins with the American entrepreneur. Socialism did not work. Progressivism stole the wealth of individuals and families. You voted for something different. Real change. But what does real change look and sound like? It looks like Las Vegas, and it sounds like Freedom Fest 10. Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds, is a popular, liberty-minded conference at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas from July 19th to the 22nd. Hear the voices of the urban freedom movement, Deneen Borelli, Larry Elder, Gina Lofton, Helen Rowley, Juan Pablo Agrande, and Zayad Abdel-Nour. Share ideas with powerful liberty movement figures like Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Anthony Scaramucci, Jennifer Grossman, Naomi Brockwell, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Peter Schiff, and our keynote speaker this year, William Shatner. Your money, your liberty, your freedom, your city. Come for the real and return with the change. Register now at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code TECN. We'll see you there.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best late night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio. The best late night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Okay, we are back. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and we are on with Mr. Brian Trascher today. We are talking to Brian Trascher about the reforms that are going on in the Trump administration right now, namely two major reforms that are going on, the reform of the health care bill and some tax reforms that are going on. And before the break, I said I wanted to talk to you about the major players, the major lobbyists that might be involved in the tax reform bills. In your opinion, who are the major influencers, the major players, or the sectors that might be involved in influencing the tax reform bill or any tax reform?
So tax reform is an issue that crosses virtually every industry. Everybody either thinks they're paying too much or thinks that certain people aren't paying enough. And so it's hard to pinpoint what industry, is taking the lead on it. But I think that when it comes to influencers, I think that you're going to have most of your input coming from folks like, Americans for Tax Reform, the Grover Norquists of the world, and things like that. Are going to be having, because they have a lot of influence on maybe not so much on the administration, but on the members of Congress. And so I think that as this debate goes on, it's going to be kind of a ground up. But you're going to have some of the top budget types, top fiscal types. Paul Ryan is a fiscal hawk. He's always been, very deep in the weeds on the budget, even before he got into the leadership. So it's going to be, instead of a well-oiled machine, you're going to see oil kind of spilling all over the floor until somebody finally comes in and mops it up.
You're right about that. You're absolutely right about that. And I'm thinking about organizations like fairtax.org, coming in. I mean, he's talking about, President Trump is talking about, only making the tax code like 3 pages. And I'm going, man, dream on. Like, are you, you know what I mean? Listen, I admire his tenacity. I love the fact that he wants to simplify things. I mean, I'm a free market gal. I think the fact that he's a business guy is huge. I think it's going to, be a fresh look at how government works. And I do think that he's going to come up with some new ideas that the government, and the bureaucracy has never thought of that will be beneficial. I do. But man, is it a little bit scary as well. And I think he's seeing that. You know what I mean? I think that he is seeing that it's just not moving as quickly as he would have liked.
Well, I think you're right. And, the president might be a little bit hyperbolic when he says he'd like to see it be about 3 pages. Now, one way you could have the tax code be that short of a document is if you move the collection of taxes and the imposition of taxes on the American people to consumption based. There's been an argument of flat tax versus sales tax. Personally, as a conservative, I've always believed that you don't raise taxes, you broaden your tax base.
Yes.
That's the way you keep the government funded. And in a consumption-based tax, vis-a-vis a sales tax, it's not only does everybody pay. I mean, I'm talking about everybody, people from billionaires to people on welfare.
Right.
And people off the grid, like drug dealers and whatnot. I mean, everybody pays, but the taxes at that point are completely optional.
Right.
You don't have to pay them. You don't have to buy anything if you don't want to. You know, you can grow your own food and go build your own house in the middle of the woods if you want, and not have to ever pay any taxes. But this way, and think about it. You know, everybody does their. You know, April 15th is coming up this week, and everybody's going to be rushing to do their taxes and either get their refunds or send money in if they owe money. And this is how the federal government, because hardly anybody, I mean, a lot of businesses will do their stuff quarterly, but most small businesses don't pay their taxes quarterly. You know why? Because the fine for not doing so is cheaper than paying somebody to do your quarterly taxes for you. I know this firsthand. So, you know, it might be an extra $100 at the end of the year for not doing it quarterly. Right. And I'm okay with that because it'll cost me probably $100 a quarter, if not more, for somebody to prepare for me. Anyway, I didn't mean to go off on that tangent. I was trying to give an example, but
no.
In a consumption-based tax, everybody pays, and every time a retailer or any type of a business that collects this type of tax, every time they remit, which would probably be once a month, it's better cash flow for the government. We'd have to borrow less. We'd have better bond ratings. All the states would have better bond ratings because more people would be paying into the system and they would be collecting faster.
Absolutely. And it would eliminate the whole problem that we have with undocumented people not paying taxes as well. I mean, that whole
they would all pay. I mean, a lot of them pay sales tax now.
Right.
Most of them do because they're here buying things and they usually get paid in cash, and so they turn around and pay cash for what they consume. But you know, I mean, right now I'm saying if we have a larger sales tax, personally, I wouldn't mind paying up to 20% on top of everything I buy if it meant I didn't have to pay any income tax. Now, of course, we could exempt things like prescription drugs and diapers and certain types of consumables that would disproportionately affect people that probably need the relief, and that's pretty easy to do. It's pretty easy to come up with a list of things that would get taxed at a lower rate. But I mean, big screen TVs, automobiles, going out to eat at restaurants and bars and things like that. A lot of those retailers would probably fight it, but they got to understand that at the end of the day, when people realize that their paycheck that they earn every 2 weeks or however often they get paid, when they get to keep the whole thing and none of it gets taken out, they're eventually going to be okay with paying a little more at the register. And again, it's voluntary. You don't have to go out to eat. One of the things that really ticked me off the most, and I, maybe it makes me a bad person, but I lived through Hurricane Katrina back in 2005 here in New Orleans, and when they were evacuating people out of the public housing, almost every one of those units had a big giant screen TV in it. I mean, look, if people live in public housing and they work and they can afford that, that's one thing. But most of these folks are getting, practically free rent, so maybe that's why they can afford a big screen TV. You know what I mean? So I don't mind paying an extra 20% every time I go buy a big screen TV, and if somebody who is living off of public subsidies goes and they could pay their fair share too.
Well,
it's probably not a popular comment to make, but I can get where I am by being popular. I can promise you that.
Well, then I shall join you on the list of bad people then, because I feel the same way, and I've been saying it for years. I'm like, wait a minute, your rent is $50 a month. Why do you have a big screen TV? And I look, I feel like if you're legitimate, you have a big screen TV that's like $700. I can't afford a big screen TV, and I go out and work every day. Something's wrong there. I'm sorry.
I mean, the society rewards, the opposite of innovation, the opposite of hard work, the opposite of personal accountability. And again, I'm not saying that there's a big push right now for consumption-based tax. I've always been in favor of it, and I just think that I think that now that we have the president and the Congress we have, I think now's the time for, and this is something that libertarians should look too. I mean, libertarians don't like tax. They don't even think that income tax is constitutionally legal, and they might be right.
Yep.
But a sales tax is. A sales tax definitely is legal. consumption-based because taxes were never supposed to be mandatory, and a consumption-based tax is not mandatory; it is fully optional. So, yeah, you're right. You know, if my mortgage company called me up and said, "Hey, from now on, you're only going to have to pay us $100 a month, and the federal government's going to pick up the rest of the tab," guess what? I'm going to buy a Ferrari the next day.
Yep. And I submit to you that the reason why you saw so many big screen TVs during Hurricane Katrina is because of the way our tax system is set up, because of the windfall that seems to happen from some people who are not working, and you get an $8,000 tax return at the end of the year, and instead of reinvesting that money properly and say in education or some kind of way to lift you up out of that situation, you got a big screen TV. You know what I'm saying? So
exactly, yeah.
So that that's a situation. That's a problem.
And that's one of the reasons, Melanie, that President Trump won the election, because people who are hard work, see all the government freebies out there, and they know they're the ones paying for it, and they're struggling. I mean, look, I was fortunate enough to go around to several rallies that then candidate Trump had around the country, and of course the first two that I went to were in Louisiana and Mississippi, and it was obvious that he was going to be popular in conservative southern states like that. We went to places like Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, even in Virginia. Like the diversity of people that were coming out of the woodwork and packing these big arenas, 10,000, 15,000 strong, with another 4,000 or 5,000 waiting outside. These were, bikers. These were people wearing union T-shirts who had been voting Democrat their whole lives. And for what? And I'm sitting there in my head thinking, why is this Manhattan billionaire connecting with this blue-collar guy making $55,000 a year, supporting a family of four, trying to make ends meet? Why is he connecting with him? And it dawned on me after a while that what you were describing is exactly why. Because the average American is out there hustling, sometimes working two jobs, and the spouse working two, and it's all they can do to keep a roof over their head, the kids in good schools, maybe take a short family vacation once a summer, have a car, things like that. And it's everything they can do to be hand to mouth, and they're laying up at night, can't sleep because they know they're not tucking away enough for retirement or maybe for their kids' college education. And then they see all these folks, illegals coming in and getting free health care and free government subsidies and getting, welfare money that they want to Western Union and sending back to Mexico to their families back there. And you got veterans dying while waiting to get health care, and people who not only never fought for this country, they're not even tax-paying citizens, are getting stuff for free. I mean, they finally just threw their hands up and said, you know what? Screw the Democrats, screw the Republicans too. We're voting for Trump because he is the, for lack of a better phrase, he's the excrement in the punch bowl. He is the stop the carnival lever. The free ride's over, and it's time for everybody to go back to work and make this country great again, and that's why he won.
Absolutely. Before I have to let you go, because we have to bring the show to a close, please tell our audience where they can get your book.
So, Laws and Sausage is on Amazon and Kindle, so you can go find on Amazon.com and just type in Laws and Sausage. You'll see it there. If you're on Amazon Prime, it's free shipping. You can go to lawsandsausage.net is my website, and there's a way to buy it there. My Twitter handle is Laws, the letter N, Sausage, and then you can find me on Facebook as well. So a lot of different ways to get it. If you are interested in having me be your keynote speaker about Laws and Sausage, again, go to my website, fill out the form, contact me anytime, and please keep following Money Talk with Melanie, and I definitely appreciate you having me on today.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind. I appreciate you being on the show today. I hope to have you back real soon.
Anytime.
All right. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
I want to thank everyone who listened to the show today. I want to thank Brian Trascher for being on the show today. He was absolutely fantastic. Remember that this is all very important because it is your money.